Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Nighttime. We missed a few weeks, but we are back and talking about the UCF soccer teams and their tournament hopes, college basketball, and of course, the first edition of the college football playoff rankings. Stay tuned because Nighttime starts right now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
We are back. Thank you for joining us. And before we get into the soccer teams, I do want to give a shout out to one of our guys on the couch. Ron, it is your birthday. Happy birthday. Thanks for celebrating with us on Nighttime, but everyone say happy birthday, Ron.
Honestly, this is where I'd rather be for my birthday.
Thanks. That means a lot. And Jared, you're completing the gauntlet, but how do you feel about coming on Nighttime for the first time? Oh, yeah, it's both your season debuts on Nighttime.
Yeah. Listen, today's all about Ron. I don't want to steal any of his spotlight, so it's all about him.
Okay.
No, he's doing that Mickey Mouse gauntlet because he hasn't been on Girl Talk.
That's crazy.
Okay.
After giving him all
He
that
went on
love.
Girl Talk. Oh, right. This week, yeah. Okay, so let's get started with our women's soccer team who just played in their first ever Big 12 tournament. Jared, do you want to take me through what their 2 games looked like in this matchup?
So we actually started out looking pretty good against TCU. We won 3-2, and you know, I gotta say I was pretty confident, but unfortunately, we fell short to BYU. We lost 4-1, and BYU just has our number. We played them in the last game of the regular season. They had our number then. I think we lost 3-2, if I'm not correct, or if I'm mistaken. But yeah, they just have our number, and you know, I still think that we can be successful in the tournament. But yeah, we lost to. But listen, BYU's good. They're number 7 for a reason, so I'm not too upset about it. But we'll see how we do in the future.
Yeah, BYU does lead the nation in goals and assists. So, Ron, what did you think about this matchup? And do you think the Knights' resume is good enough to make the NCAA tournament? Because now they're waiting on the selection show, which will be on Monday.
I think it was tough. BYU was always going to be a tough matchup. We absolutely got dominated in, honestly, both games. But I want to say, yeah, I think we'll make the tournament. We had a very bad second half of the season. We started off pretty good. We were ranked at one point. But I think, you know, losing to Texas, I think we tied against Oklahoma, or we lost against Oklahoma. We tied or lost against Oklahoma State. We weren't coming into good form. Our last game of the season, we lost to BYU. So the last 4 or 5 games, including the one against BYU where we lost 4-1, was tough. I do hope that they make it because I think they have proven in the first half that they can be a good team. They just need to pick up that form.
Yeah, I agree. Tyler, do you have any thoughts on the women's soccer team and their tournament hopes?
I don't think they'll make the tournament this year. Their resume is not as good as it was a season ago. Last year they were in the conference final. Now, granted, that was the American, and they were dominating that conference for a long time. And now, first year in the Big 12, it was just a lot of this. I think this team is too inconsistent for them to get a lucky spot into the tournament like they did a year ago. So I don't think it'll happen.
And then moving on to our men's soccer team, who haven't started tournament play yet, but they did lose to James Madison in the final game of the season to clinch the number 2 seed in the Sun Belt. Jared, can you take me through this game? I know we were talking about it before you went on air.
I mean, listen, we lost to James Madison. It's rough. We were the number 1 overall team in the nation for about a day and a half, and then we lose to an unranked James Madison, and now we're the number 2 seed. But hey, at least for now, until the rankings drop, we can still say that we're the number 1 team in the country. So
Typical UCF fashion. We lost to Navy last year. We lost to James Madison this year.
A unanimous number 1 team, by the way.
Unanimous. You're
Unanimous.
right.
Nobody
Unanimous
else.
number 1 team.
There was no other team that someone thought that was better than us.
And Ron, how far do you think the Knights will drop in those rankings that come out on Tuesday, by the way?
I think they'll still be top 5. I mean, they have been top 5 for most of the season. I don't think a loss against James Madison, although be it at home, would affect our rankings too much. Marshall will definitely get ahead of us. Personally, I think West Virginia will probably get ahead of us too. But I think we'll still be a top 5 team, honestly. I think it's a good loss, though. A little wake-up call before you go into the tournament.
Yeah, and now they're going to host South Carolina on Sunday. And we did play South Carolina earlier this season. We won 3-2. Ron, how do you feel about this matchup with South Carolina?
Against South Carolina, I think we're okay. I think we'll be fine. I think our team will have enough momentum still to beat South Carolina. The game that I worry about, though, is if they beat South Carolina and West Virginia gets through. I think West Virginia is a very tough game. We tied against them 2-2 early in the year, and they were beating us, actually. So they were up 1-0, then we tied it. They were up 2-1, then we tied it again. So we're always playing with the back foot with them, and I would be kind of worried if we have to play West Virginia. Even though it's at home, I'm still worried because I feel like they will be in the front foot. I feel like our team still just hasn't leveled up to that yet, and then obviously we'll have to play Marshall. So I think it's against South Carolina, they'll be okay. But the reason why that game against James Madison was so important was so they can have number 1 seed, and they would have to avoid Marshall and West Virginia, and now they might have to play both. So,
Jared, how do you feel about our tournament chances in the Sun Belt?
Listen, I'm kind of a delusional UCF fan. I think we're winning it all. We're taking the gold. I know we already lost. Okay, we lost our unanimous number 1 seed. Whatever. We don't need it. Like Ron said, it just puts a chip on our shoulder, and we're going to go all the way.
Tyler, how do you feel about our tournament chances?
The biggest thing that I think is what the theme has been for this UCF men's soccer team is that these younger players need to continue to step up. Guys like Emmanuel Bam, who a guy I love, I talk about a lot on this show, Saku Heiskanen, and of course, Luca Dorado needs to continue being that great leader and scoring presence that he has been throughout his entire career, not just this season. I think they can run through this tournament and win the conference at the end. They will have tough games, likely against West Virginia, and again, they'll likely play Marshall. 2 teams they didn't beat. Will they be able to overcome them the second time around if they get the chance? I think so. But again, it's those young guys. They need to continue to play well and step up and rise to the occasion.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's all the time we have left for soccer. Thank you to Ron and Jared for joining us. And now we're moving on to my Nightlight. It is a UCF football player who is in his 5th year and is a huge part of the Knights defense. See you when we come back.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Dominic Mullen. Welcome to Hitting the Field Network. Our first show that you're going to see on YouTube is Hitting the Field Main Show, hosted by yours truly on Mondays at noon, where you'll see me with a fresh fade and fresh news. I'll also be talking a little bit of the hottest topics in sports, and we are going to be arguing mainly on there. On Tuesdays at noon, you'll see Isaiah Deanda Delgado and Ty Patton on the Combine. Just more of a podcast, laid-back style of a show. And if you're looking for the most creative segment ideas, head on over there on Tuesday. On our off day, don't forget to check out the studio vlogs on Wednesdays. Andrew Montano does a great job of giving a little bit of the behind-the-scenes look into Hitting the Field. Moving to Thursdays, speaking of Andrew Montana, him, Philip Powell, and Ezra Hines lead the way on HTF Bets. The Bets boys always come dressed to impress, and if you're looking to win some money and catch up on the latest betting lines, that's the show for you. On Fridays, you're going to head over and see Maddie Glass and the always wrong Tyler Brownrigg on Nighttime to break down everything about college sports. If you go to UCF or are interested in UCF sports, this is the best place for you. Sorry, Tyler. Our newest show here at Hitting the Field on Saturdays is Girl Talk, hosted by Kirsten Blaylock and Lexi Zolo. The all-female hosted show tackles breaking news all across the sports world and as well reliving the history and current state of your favorite team. Check that show out Saturdays at noon. Again, I am your main show host, Dominic Moeller, and if you're enjoying this content, don't be afraid to subscribe to our Hitting the Field YouTube and check out our Instagram. But for now, that's all. I'll see you on main show. Take care.
It is linebacker Jason Johnson. He leads the team in tackles with 72, including 42 solo tackles and 2 tackles for loss. And now we are moving on to college basketball, which is the first time we were talking about this season because last week doesn't count. We had to scratch the show due to some technical difficulties. But we're back here with Noah Kemper. Noah, how do you feel about college basketball season approaching? Are you ready?
Oh, I am so ready. Oh, one of the best, seasons coming up, and I'm ready.
Tyler, how do you feel? Are you excited? I know you're a football guy.
I mean, yeah, I'm a big football guy. I don't super follow college basketball until March comes around. But this year, I do feel pretty invested, not going to lie, especially being here on nighttime.
100%.
But let's start talking about these teams. And we're going to start off with who we think is the best team in the nation. Now, Noah, we'll start with you. This is your favorite team. We know you love them. Tell us about Kansas.
I love talking about them, and I know I say this a lot, but it's our year. It's Kansas' year. Rock Chalk. They're winning it. And you know what?
Oh,
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. We got the transfer, Hunter Dickinson. He's coming in, 5-star, averaged 18.5 points, 9 rebounds. And you got returners like McCullough, Harris Jr., KJ Adams. Oh, this team, with Bill Self coaching, there's no limit to this team. They're going all the way.
Yeah, they were the preseason Big 12, came in first in the AP poll as well. And a little bit about Hunter Dickinson. Tyler, what do you think that he can bring to this team that they didn't have last year, or they lost because they did lose Jalen Wilson and Grady Dick to the NBA?
What Hunter Dickinson brings with his game is he is a great two-way player, and he's also surprisingly good from three-point land, which, you know, you're losing a premier shooter in Grady Dick to the NBA draft. I think that is the biggest thing. Outside shooting was like the concern is like we're losing. Kansas was losing that, but they immediately was able to replace it both in the transfer portal and with recruiting. So Kansas is obviously, for good reason, the cream of the crop in college basketball, and I think is worthy of the number 1 spot, though I personally would not give it to them.
And then Noah, real quick, obviously the Big 12 is just amazing at basketball. Who do you think their biggest competition is to winning this conference?
Oh man, there's honestly so many names you could throw up there. I think one name, specifically because of the transfer portal and just players they brought in, is Texas. I know they have a couple weapons in, so we got to see how well they mesh, how the chemistry is, and I just think Texas is such a wild card team. So I think that would be a big competition for Kansas.
Yeah, and then obviously it's Houston's first year in the conference, and they are also a cream of the crop basketball program now. And then, so Tyler, you picked a different team. Me and Noah both picked Kansas. You went with Marquette. Why did you pick Marquette?
Marquette, I feel like, is not getting the respect it deserves. Now, yes, they are a top 10 team, which is fair, but they're reigning Big East champs currently. UConn, who won the national title last year, couldn't beat them in their conference title game, and they made the tournament. Marquette is returning almost their entire starting lineup from last year. They have the best backcourt with Kolek and Jones. This is probably the best backcourt in the nation. They got David Joplin, who is a mobile big man, who is great for both their pick and roll, pick and pop game. It is outstanding. And they've got freshmen coming in who the coach thinks can be real difference makers for this team. Now the Big East, highly competitive this year. You have UConn, obviously, reigning champs. Creighton, they're also national title contenders. This is a Final Four potential team. And then, of course, you have Marquette. This is a team that I think, though, will be able to run the table in the conference like it did last year, and I think is almost a near lock for the Final Four.
Noah, do you agree with that statement? You think Marquette's a near lock for the Final Four, or is it too early to say?
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised at all, Marquette. I mean, they have a very talented team, bringing back a lot of people, so I wouldn't put it past it.
Yeah, and then let's move on to some overrated teams. I want to start with Tyler, who picked Purdue, who, we know Purdue as chokers. So why did you pick them as being overrated? They're one in Kim Pom, so the analytics believe in them this year.
Oh, yes, the analytics love them. Purdue, they're always so great, and they will be great. Don't get me wrong, this regular season. They'll win a lot of games, probably. Likely to win the Big Ten. They're the betting favorites, and they might, though I think there are plenty of teams that can compete with them in that conference. But here's the reality about Purdue, is that like Maddie said, they are chokers. They are not going to surprise anyone come tournament time with a big run. No, what they will in fact do is lose. Maybe in the first round again, probably in the second. I guarantee you it will be to a double-digit seeded team because that is what they always do. Despite having the best player in college basketball in Zach Edey, this 7'4" giant, it seems like, just give him the ball, let him score in the paint, and then we'll just win. It should be easy, right? Nope, not for Purdue. Everything must be difficult. They must continue to have these teams. They take the path of most resistance. They can't put away teams that they should easily beat. That is why I think I have zero confidence in them to do anything this March and maybe even do anything this tournament for the conference.
Noah, you picked another Big Ten team, Michigan State. Do you think Michigan State is overrated? Can you explain that to me?
I mean, I do, and it's just going to be a brutal start to the season because they are shorthanded right now with injuries and everything. And when you got to start off with teams like Duke and Arizona, I think they're going to lose to both of those. So that would already put them at like 2-2 by then, and it's going to be a brutal start for them in one of the toughest conferences in college basketball, and I think it's just going to be a downhill slope from there.
Noah, do you think Purdue will win the Big Ten, or are you like Tyler? You just don't believe in them?
I'm so sick of Purdue. I'm sick of the hype, and I absolutely agree with Tyler. It's ridiculous. And maybe they will win the Big Ten, but they're not going to win March Madness. No, I'll put all my money on that. They are not.
And then I picked Gonzaga just because I was surprised that they're in top 5 in KenPom ratings, considering how much they lost. And I also think St. Mary's has a great chance to win the West Coast Conference. I don't know about you guys. Noah, how do you feel about Gonzaga this year?
I mean, Gonzaga's always just a mystery of a team. It really is. And I honestly think they're kind of similar to Purdue. I think they are going to have some hype going into the tournament and just kind of fizzle out.
And then let's go into some underrated teams. Tyler, I'll start with you. You chose Baylor. Can you explain that pick to me?
Baylor, I think, is a really interesting team for us to talk about. They might honestly have the potential to be the best team in Texas. Now, currently they're ranked the 20th nationally. And Drew Scott, listen, he's been around college basketball. He has taken his team to the Final Four. He's won a championship. And they have added a lot of players to this team, specifically freshman Jacoby Walter and then senior transfer Ray J. Dennis. These guys are real difference makers, he believes. And Ray J. Dennis, especially the senior transfer, it can add a lot of defensive presence that they'll definitely need in this high-scoring conference that the Big 12 is likely to become with teams like Houston, obviously Kansas, and the usual suspects.
And then, Noah, you chose North Texas, who are the defending NIT champions, I believe. So, Noah, can you tell me why North Texas can make a run this season?
I mean, the defending champions of the NIT.
It matters, man.
This is a good team, and yes, they might be overshadowed by their presence entering the AAC, which, by the way, is honestly a much weaker conference with the exits of the top teams, but they do have some momentum going in there because they have a commitment flip from TCU, 3-star Rondo Walker Jr. And with a transfer of John Buggs III, I believe that's his name. So I feel like they do have some momentum coming into this, and I think they can crack the actual tournament this year and just kind of turn a lot of heads because the Mean Green Machines. I think they're gonna be here this tournament.
And then I believe this is their first season in the American, too. And the American's actually pretty interesting. You have FAU. You still have USF, who was okay last year at basketball, and North Texas. So it's going to be really competitive. But that's all the time we have for college basketball. I'll throw it over to Tyler's Nightlight, and we'll see you in a minute.
Yes, for my Nightlight this week, it is, just like Maddie, a football player, though he is on the offensive side, I'll tell you that much. But you'll learn who it is after this commercial. We'll be right back.
Jack, buddy. Why are you here?
I don't really understand why I'm here. I got called a delusional fan. I just don't understand why I'm delusional if I think Kirk Cousins had the best mustache in the league.
Well, Jack, buddy, I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but I don't think anybody looks cool in handlebars.
But they're back, man. They're back.
They're not. They're not. Sometimes you just got to face the hard truth. It's right there in front of you. All these people, they're calling you delusional, but sometimes you got to worry about, am I projecting? Is it me? And in this
Let me
case,
tell you something, bud. It could never be me. Anything I say is factual and truth, and that's why the Vikings are going 16-1 this year.
Organization, you have to look at your roster and say, I've had Kirk O'Duggins for 6 years. Maybe it's time to move on.
There is no moving on from Kirk Thuggins and Justin Jefferson.
Do you think that maybe this all started just because of a little disappointment?
Nothing has started. This is how I live, and I am not delusional. I'm a prophet.
If you can guess, my Nightlight was UCF wide receiver Javon Baker. He has scored 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games, though it has not led to the Knights winning. Hopefully that will be subject to change. We shall see as time goes forward. But our guests for this college football playoff rankings talk segment is, of course, longtime nighttime veteran Patrick Preverty, and making his nighttime debut, Justice Covert. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Covert.
All right, Justice Covert. How are you both doing today so far?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about some college football. Been looking forward to it all week.
Yeah, I'm doing well too. Great to have the college football playoff rankings finally out. So.
Yes, and let's get into that right now. So the top 4 is Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and FSU. Just initially, do you guys believe that this is the correct top 4?
I personally love it. I think they did a really good job. Ohio State's got the best resume in the country. There's no doubting that. Georgia, they've been really heating it up. They're going to be one of the most dangerous teams after heating up going into November. Michigan, they're really getting good. They got some scandalous things coming around them, but I don't think the College Football Committee really considered that when they made the decision. And Florida State, undefeated, no problems with that. So yeah, I think they did a really great job.
Yeah, Ohio State, like you said, best resume, 2 best wins in the country. Georgia's still 2-time defending champions, got to respect them. And Michigan just taking down every opponent, no matter like how lowly they are. And FSU, I can respect them because they're an undefeated Power 5 team, but I would have put Washington in it.
Yeah.
I understand that they have had their past 2 weeks have been very close games against teams that they probably shouldn't have been close against, but I think that win over Oregon is so big compared to FSU's resume that I would have put Washington ahead.
Tyler, would you have Washington or FSU in that number 4 spot?
Personally, I would put Washington in that number 4 spot because there's a lot of recency bias in this list right now. Obviously, it was very clear from the committee. FSU, that LSU win is carrying them a lot right now. And I understand Washington has been struggling in past weeks, but FSU struggled against Boston College. They only beat them by 2. FSU struggled against Clemson, which is now a 500 team. And at the time, we thought, oh, that win's impressive. It's actually not now. And Georgia and Michigan, I would swap them personally. I understand. Because if we're going based off resume, right? Ohio State, clearly best resume in the country, undoubtedly. But Georgia and Michigan have had similar strengths of schedule, both well over 100. But Michigan has dominated every single opponent they've played. You cannot say the same about Georgia. So that is my only critique, I would say, for the top 4.
Justice, do you agree with that? Like, Georgia, obviously they have the resume from last year and stuff, but Michigan has been a better football team this season. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. J.J. McCarthy, personally, is my probably favorite quarterback of the season. Georgia, now technically they haven't beaten anybody in the top 25 now. They did have a ranked win over Kentucky, probably their best win this season. They won by like 40 points. But I think Michigan, they're going to put it together. They're scoring more than 40 points a game. They're getting more than 10 yards a pass. What they did against Michigan State was just a bloodletting. So, yeah, I think they're going to take care of business. They're going to beat Ohio State, and they could potentially be number 1 by the end of the year.
So, do you guys think that at the end of the season when the playoffs actually start, are these going to be the top 4? What would you say the odds that these are going to be the top 4 teams?
That's tough.
I don't think so.
There's a lot of football left.
Yeah, especially with Ohio State and Michigan playing. I think Georgia has Missouri, Tennessee, and Ole Miss on their schedule. Right. So, I mean, that would be my still favorite to make it out of the SEC. But as far as Ohio State and Michigan, I think that's going to be one of those teams. And then maybe FSU runs the table, but I honestly see them tripping up. So, I don't know. Maybe 2 teams max from this group.
Yeah, I think FSU probably has the most to lose. They have the easiest schedule coming out, but if they lose to Miami or Florida, that would be absolutely crippling to their program. It could be a great spark plug if they do win and they win out and then they secure to get to the college football playoffs. But I see other teams like Washington and Oregon who have just a gauntlet in front of them that if they win those games out, that I think on paper they should take the place of Florida State.
I also don't see Florida State, if they were to lose the ACC championship game against Louisville and be 12-1 non-conference champ. I don't see them getting in over either Oregon or Washington.
They absolutely have to put the blinders on, just win every game from here on out, and they're really controlling their own destiny.
And then Tyler, I want to ask actually all of you, but I'll go with Tyler first. What does not make sense about these rankings? Is there anything that jumps off the screen where it's like, why is that? Why did they choose that way?
It's blatantly obvious. Texas being ranked over Oklahoma is idiotic. okay? Because there's a lot of things that go in to the committee's decision-making process, if you don't know, for when they make this list. This list, this is the first one, pretty low effort. They just basically did what everyone expected. But they take a lot of things into consideration: strength of schedule, wins, like neutral site on the road. But there's one big one that they don't seem to consider for this scenario, and that's head-to-head. But head-to-head is considered in other parts of this ranking. Washington is ranked over Oregon. They beat them after all. And Texas is ranked over Alabama because they beat them. But OU is not ranked over Texas? I'm sorry, did we not beat them at a neutral site? Like, what does, I understand, Oklahoma, there's some recency bias to this. They haven't looked great the past couple weeks, and they just lost to Kansas. But we beat Texas. We should be ranked over them. It is that simple.
Okay, wait, so Patrick, do you agree with Tyler's logic, or do you understand the committee's reasonings for ranking Texas over Oklahoma?
No, I completely agree with Tyler. This is one of those things where I just don't understand why the committee does something like this. I always ride so hard for the committee. I say, look, these guys, they know what they're talking about. These 13 people in this room, they always get it right by the end of the year. But I don't know why they didn't respect the head-to-head. And they respected it throughout the entire rest of the rankings except for Kansas and Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Oklahoma State is directly ranked under Kansas, which seems so unnecessary because Oklahoma State beat Kansas and they both have the same record. So, I don't know. It seems like it was very top-heavy by the committee. They've kind of focused on the top 6 teams, and everything else they kind of phoned in.
Justice, do you think anything else stuck out to you as like this should be wrong, or do you agree with Tyler's just that aspect?
No, I think he pretty much nailed it on the head. Oklahoma should absolutely be over Texas and Alabama.
Okay, and that's all the time we have for the playoff rankings, but let's get into our primetime picks of the week. I am 2-3. We didn't count last week, but I did win last week. I think Tyler did too. But the last time we were all here with Patrick, we picked Notre Dame over USC and won. Patrick did not choose Notre Dame. But this week it's Alabama, LSU. Alabama is favored by 3. Start with Patrick and Justice. Who are you guys taking in this game?
I'm going with Alabama. I don't really like Brian Kelly, so seeing him lose is just a great time overall. I think he's a very unserious individual. So, yeah, I'm going with the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I go with Alabama too. I think they're getting good at the perfect time right now. So I think
Tyler, real quick, who are you
I'll
picking?
go with Bama. Roll Tide.
Okay, I'm going with LSU. I think their offense, is electric, and I don't know. I think it's time. I think LSU is going to get the win. But I believe that that's all the time we have left for this week's episode of Nighttime. Thank you to all of our guests who have joined us. Happy birthday, Ron, and we will see you next week.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, now I don't got